Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are entering part 4 of our little mini series about cleaning your projects and maintaining corporate standards. But before I get too far ahead of myself here, my brain just went nuts. I got to point out two things. First part is questions. If you have questions, please use the questions panel, ask away. I will do my best to answer them as I go. If I can't answer them or don't see it until it's too late, I will make sure to answer everything at the very end and make sure we get everything taken care of and everybody understands what we're talking about today. Secondly, this is being recorded, just like all our other webinars, and will be on our YouTube channel shortly after this presentation concludes, likely tomorrow. With that said, we'll just kind of keep going with this. So, this entire webinar series has been about tracking down model issues and how to address it. Well, first, how to find it, how to address it, and how do we resolve it. And as many of you know, doing this without any third-party tool for assistance, very disruptive to the project. It's very time-consuming. There isn't anything out there for manually tracking or for tracking these issues or reporting on anything, right? A lot of this is all stuff that you have to put together yourself. Very much a manual process, and it takes a long time to get your information back, and then a lot more time to institute a fix. So in the first 3 parts of the series, we are talking about a bunch of different ways to gather the data and how to address it. In this part, starting today, we are getting into more of like enforcement mode, right? And maybe enforce isn't the right word, but we're getting into the part of the series where we are focusing on corporate standards and how to maintain that moving forward, right? So we spent the first 3 times talking about cleanup and a little bit about standards-ish last week, but this week and next week we're talking about how to establish and distribute standards and I guess enforce in a way, sort of, maybe. So before I get too far ahead of myself, we'll just kind of get through the issues in a recap. So as I mentioned in the introduction, the issues are standards can be difficult to administer, takes forever to set up, disruptive to the project because you might even have to take the project offline at times to do some of this repair work. And there's nothing out there for tracking, and there aren't any tools to help you with that unless you have a third-party app. Right? Revit doesn't offer any of that stuff natively. So these are all of the tools that we've talked about, or that we would be talking about throughout the course of this series. We've talked about everything from model compare to project snapshot, from batch suite, project suite, manager suite. Today, we are going to focus on spreadsheet link, project processor, and view creator. And hopefully, when this is done, you guys understand how to set up a bunch of views and sheets, process of renaming those elements in an existing project if that was started previously, or to help set up or to help implement the standard if the view creation process isn't 100% what you need it to be. And then we're going to talk about some additional cleanup tools and Purge-like application that would assist you with keeping cleaner files moving forward. And before I jump into the demo, I'm going to do a quick little recap of what we've covered in the first 3 videos, which are all up on our YouTube channel. So please, if you haven't seen them yet, go back and watch them. They all have the same title, part 1, 2, 3. So week 1, we talked about using model compare and project snapshot exporter and project activity logger to collect the data from our Revit files. And, I call it data capture, but effectively we're scanning the models, we're pulling out bits and pieces of the project information, and we are pushing it to a database of sorts. And then you can use a program like Power BI, or maybe it's a Tableau, or depending on what avenue you're working with, just referencing data in SQL, or a product like Domo. If you're willing to spend some extra money, it's up to you how you want to. There's a lot of options for viewing said data. Week 2, we talked about once we figured out what the issue was, let's clean it up. So we have Project Cleaner for purging views, sheets, schedules, line types and patterns and stuff, maybe from an exploded AutoCAD file, blowing all that stuff away. We talked about Dimension Checker for doing dimensional cleanup when overrides have been made to the dimension strings that weren't just text, right? Instead of replacing it with C schedule or throwing in a UNO, they flat out just replaced it with a value, another dimensional value. Import Link Manager was the third tool we talked about to assist with the managing and reloading of links and imported CAD files, managing their work sets, pin, unpin, room bounding, convert an import to a link, or just flat out remove them. And then part 3, we talked about Type Swapper for large batches of replacing content. So sometimes you get the number 1 next to your content after you loaded drafting views from one project to the next. A very common place to see it. Type Swapper helps you repair that stuff, or takes bad text styles and swaps them out with the standard text style, dim styles, materials, line types, patterns, styles. So we showed you a little bit about Type Swapper and how to clean up some of that stuff, get your organization-specific content put in place. We used Schedule Parameter Resolver to fix schedules that were using the wrong parameters or the incorrect shared parameter, because sometimes you can get duplicate parameter names, especially if you're using manufacturer content. You've got your own content, same name, different GUIDs, means different values. So Schedule Parameter Resolver allows us to clean up some of that stuff in our schedules to get the right data in place. And I didn't have room for it, but we also talked about the Revision Manager and Revision Cloud Remover to assist with revision management and some additional during the CA process, and to help clean up revisions that were showing on sheets that shouldn't have been on the sheet, right? Especially if things were hidden and issued. It's hard to track things down without a reporting tool. So we used both the Revision Manager and Revision Cloud Remover to do some cleanup on that front. Which brings us to today. Spreadsheet link, view creator, project processor. So let's get going. Jump into the demo. And let me find my Revit. Here we are. Okay. Now, what I've got here is we're starting a brand new project, right? So we're thinking, how do I deploy standards, right? Or how do I make standards available to everyone, yet easy to use? A big one is the view naming and view creation, and how that's all created, and get people started off on the right foot. So what I've done here is I've got a brand new project started with basically nothing in it. I like to keep my template files to a minimum, and then use products like View Creator to help me establish the setup that I need. I also like to use a product like Hive to help load my content that I need when I need it into my project. It's, your content library at your fingertips is what we get here. So you can see I actually pulled my template, or my starter project in this case, directly out of Hive for today's presentation. And I was able to set it up, do a save as, we're good to go. Now with View Creator, which is part of the BIM project suite, this tool has undergone a bit of a facelift recently and allows us to do a lot of the same things, just a little bit better, a little bit easier, a little bit more powerful at the same time. So depending on the project, the first thing we got to do is define the levels. How many levels in this project do I need? Is it a 3-story building, 10-story building, 35-story building, or just a 1-story rambler type thing? Whatever you need, you can set it up. You can also put the intermediate levels in there and whatever you need to accommodate the project. And you can come back and forth and do this as much as you need. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a level. Just call it 3rd level. And we'll put that at 24. And I'll take my roof and we'll put that at 34. And then my parapet will be at 38. Okay, got what I want. I'm just inserting another one. And before I get into building my plans and any other dependent views and whatnot, I got to create those first. So it's going to create one, update 2 others. Perfect. My elevation views, if I were to jump to it, are set up. So now I can jump into my plan views, my plan and ceiling plan views. So at this point, I need to first determine what I want and how I want it to be labeled. Part of the view creation process that we get, that View Creator helps us with, is building and establishing what the view name is going to be. I get the option for putting the level info in, a view template name / abbreviation, or nothing, phase info, and scope box if we're dealing with dependent views or will be dealing with a dependent view. So I know I need to get these levels in place. This, because it's a new one, doesn't have an abbreviation yet, so I'm going to give it one called of 03. And then you can sort it by level or by abbreviation. You know, in this case, it's alphabetical or numerical. And then I have the option to specify what my view template is, what plan views do I need to make. So if I stretch this out a little bit here, I can now decide what type of views do I need to make. So I need my code plans. I need let's see, it's just it'll be a new project. I need my finished plans. I need my general plans. And I'm going to want some presentation drawings, working drawings. Maybe I need to export to CAD at some point. You got, whatever your view template list is for floor plans, you'll get. We could also change it up and create area plans or my ceiling plans, or if you're structural, we can do that structural plan. So we can have the difference between a foundation and a framing plan, right? There's some differences there. So we have those options to define that accordingly. If there's an abbreviation if you don't want the abbreviation, just check the box. Kind of going to leave it out. Phase is all new construction in this case, and I don't have an abbreviation, so I don't need one. And none of these are going to be dependent based, but they are all going to be attached to the overall scope box. And depending on what ones you're going to use to do certain things later on, you can incorporate some different options here for how you want to manipulate this. The last step is, how do I want this labeled? And the order in which these tiles are visible here is how it's going to be named. If I don't like the order right now, I can change it. So to do that, just specify what you want to be first. So maybe it's view template first, because that tells me it's a floor plan existing or floor plan general. And then we'll go by level, let's say. Maybe I want my scope box next, and then it'll put phase at the end. So depending on what you select in that certain area, it's going to automatically adjust those for you. And it's going to give you a quick little preview down here at the bottom of what that name's going to look like. My personal preference is to put level front then view template. Then, depending on the project, I might do scope box, then phase. If there's no scope box, then I would put phase next and check or if there was no dependent views, I should say, I would check no abbreviation and move on. In this case, I'm going to leave it enabled. This is how it's going to look. If I hit add, it's going to give me all those main primary floor plans here. Now I can hit create. I'm going to run through, create all 25 views. And because my view templates were set a certain way, now they're organized in that fashion: code plan, finish plan, general, presentation, and working. That's what I brought in. And then I can turn around, start over with ceiling plans. Which ceiling plans do I want? I don't need a roof ceiling plan. I just need these four. We're gonna select all here. I didn't want to flip them. So let's do this real quick. Where I can't, there it is. I can't, maybe I don't have a ceiling plan template in here. I don't have a good one in here. I have no ceiling plan. So that's not gonna work. So I don't have one in here. Oh wait, no, I had the wrong filter set. That's my fault. There we go. Now we got it right. So now I got my general ceiling plan and new construction overall, good to go. Same order, hit add, we get my 4. And now I can jump over and start focusing on other view types. Like maybe I need some dependent views here. So it's gonna list out every single overall view that I've just got done making, what type of view it is, and then all the different scope boxes. And this requires having scope boxes in the project already. So what I can do at this point is grab the views that need dependents. Now, I purposefully labeled everything as overall because I want them all to have dependents. So I can just fly through this list without grabbing my elevations. And I want all of these to have dependents. So with them all selected, I can check that box. And what's nice about it now is it's just a press and drag. I can press and drag to highlight certain selections that I want. And based off how you've got this sorted, will kind of dictate what your selection is. I didn't mean to include site plans, so I'm going to uncheck that. But now I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And what it's going to do is fly through this, duplicate all these as dependent, and now I just got 58 additional dependent views. And now you see that my view creator window is updated. Everything's got a checkbox, and it's grayed out, meaning I don't need to make one again for that particular floor plan. So we're all good now. And you can see and then I could go through and create 3D views and schedules, sheets and title blocks, and set up managing work sets and all kinds of good stuff. But at this point, I did what I wanted to do. I've set up my overall floor plans, and I've got my dependent views in place, labeled as accordingly. Now, because it had overall in the title, it did this here, so that might not fly moving forward. And had I taken an extra 2 seconds to think about it in View Creator, I could have addressed that. But mistakes happen when things are being set up. Like I did, I moved too quick. Spreadsheet Link is a tool that helps with some cleanup, whether it's at the beginning of a project like this or 10 months down the road when a project is already underway and there's some cleanup that needs to happen with the sheet naming, the view naming, whatever the case may be. So first example, just to kind of quick introduce you to the tool, I'm going to start with this new project in Spreadsheet Link, and I'm going to build out some sheets. One of the things that kind of stinks about Revit is sheet creation. there's no good way to really get after it and build them out the way you want. Spreadsheet Link has a great tool for putting that together really quickly. And all you have to do is fire up the app, set up your sheets category and what parameters you care about. Sheet number, sheet name. I want my sorting, my sort order parameter available. If you need designed by, checked by, drawn by, issue date, whatever else you may, maybe there's a construction phase or something along those lines that is information that you would typically include on your sheet. Go ahead, bring it in. Oh, we haven't updated that in a while. All right. I got what I need. That part's done. Now I come to my preview window here and I can begin the process of creating my sheets. I can do them individually, one at a time, by entering in the sheet number, the name, and where it's going to be organized in my browser, and an issue date if you know what that is yet. You can also use the tool to batch create these sheets, which is what I'm going to do. We have this create new sheets function here that allows you to specify how many sheets that you want to add, which title block you want to use, and then either put it into your project or consider it an unplaced sheet that just kind of hangs out in the background for later use or for scheduling civil drawings or anyone using an AutoCAD drawing that you've got a reference in, but we need to include some of their stuff in our sheet index. So there's a couple of options for how you want to set this up. I'll create 20, and I'm going to use my standard title block in this case, and hit create. I'm going to get 20 new element IDs effectively, or new IDs, and now I get to go ahead and number things accordingly. I can do it this way and just do, basic Excel functions and press and drag to have things renumber for me. Or, maybe I do that for the first two, but instead of that, I'll make this 100, drag it down a few like that. Oh, we'll go one more, call it 200, something like that, 300, and keep going on until you're happy with what you got. Last one, I'll just call it a 400, just to mix it up one last time. Then we have sheet name, sheet and my sheet sort order. The issue date, it's instance-based property, and really the order and the issue dates are instance-based. I don't really need to include anything. The name, same thing. It's gonna just throw in unnamed if you don't touch it. I'm just going to put in placeholder and, oops, I didn't want to grab that. I want to grab this one. These are all going to be dumped into my architectural bucket for the time being. And just because I want to make one new one, I'm going to call this a 5 interiors, just for the sake of having something different. Okay. Now, if this is something that you use a lot of, and your template always has the same first 3 sheets, and you're always going to add, at the very least, these sheets, you can stop right here and save this to the network somewhere, wherever people will have access to it. And then this can be used again on any other new project. Just take these settings, load it into your project, and it will help you create new stuff so that you're not reinventing the wheel and trying to establish the same thing over and over and over again. At any point, you can open up any spreadsheet and hit apply. So at this point, I'm going to hit apply. In this case, you can have the option for multiple app worksheets if you've got them. I don't in this case. So I got my 20 new sheets. My 3 originals are still there. Didn't touch them. If I had errors for whatever reason, I could view that log, but I don't have any. So I'm going to close this out. I'm not going to save these settings because I've got them elsewhere already. And let's check out my sheets. So it went ahead and created this interiors grouping for me because I told that last sheet to go there. And I should only have the A400 sheet in place, which I do. Everything else should have gone to my A architectural, and it did. My resources, where my starting view is, and my general sheet. So it did exactly what I told it to, which is a beautiful thing. All right. The second thing I wanted to show you with Spreadsheet Link specifically is renaming capabilities. For example, you've got a bunch of views or you got an existing project, and the views are labeled, unfortunately. They don't match kind of the standard. Maybe they're not all caps, or maybe forget that, and you want to make sure that the, what's that property called? If you go, it's the title on sheet. You want to make sure that your title on sheet is populated appropriately so that when it's printed, that's what you see and not whatever you've put together in your browser just for organizational purposes, right? Now, part of this particular exercise is going to be using a series of settings, or a settings file that was predefined by my colleague because he's a rock star. And here we go. So, oops, I didn't want to open that. I want the settings. So that we took this and we built out a bunch of settings. So we have the option to load those settings, and here they are. So we have one for plans and we have one for details. In the plans, it is going to load up all of the views in the project with their current name, and now it's actually doing a bunch of homework for me right now and thinking and doing some lookups in a sense. So now if I jump back to my views tab, now in the project, this particular project that I had open, the title on sheet parameter was not filled out. It was left blank, and all of the views on the sheets already were simply showing whatever the view name was when I built this out. Now in this case, we've made some changes to this, not only to the actual view names, but populating the title on sheet based on all of the information over here to the right and information here on the levels tab. And that was done by using a couple of different Excel formulas. In this case, a VLOOKUP was used to source data from all of these fields to give us the appropriate view name and then title on sheet. And the reason why my coworker did this is because he's much better at Excel than I am. I would have one heck of a time trying to get this to work on my own. There's actually another way to do it that apparently is even better. I believe he said it was an index and match. So that process is quicker, loads faster, calculates faster. And that load that we experienced here that was only about 5 or 10 seconds, maybe would have only taken 1 or 2 seconds. So there's some options. There's different ways to go about doing it. And it's one of the supported functions in the spreadsheet tool that we are using here. Now, at this point, I can turn around and just hit apply, and it's going to take this information and apply it to all the views in my project as soon as I click go. And I believe I only have the one to apply. So let's do it. And now it's cooking, it's running through. And there we go. So now it's yelling at me for one of the, no, why did that open? I want this. Let's see which one it doesn't like. The delete me floor plan, of course. Okay. And that's the one that shouldn't even be there. So you just keep going on, and it updated 112 of them, and 7 were left alone. So even though I ran into the error, it let me know which one was the issue, so I can come back to it if I need to, but it still continued on and finished the process, which is beautiful, because now I don't have to worry about it. And I can go on with my day, and now my prints are set current, and I can move on. So Spreadsheet Link not only gives you the option for editing in that preview window manually, like I showed you with the sheet creation, we can also use Excel formulas to help us with renaming processes. And in addition to that, so those are just 2 different examples. There's a whole bunch of different workflows that you can utilize this for. And for things like project reviews and residential unit summaries or room calculations or inserting your material IDs, and the list goes on. I mean, you can see we've got a whole bunch of different settings that can be used to help push out and make the standards easier to implement and easier to apply. And in a lot of cases, your users don't even have to get to this point where they see this big old Excel spreadsheet window. We have the option of having them use Spreadsheet Link Express to specify a setup and click go, and then it's going to go. For example, so I could take this and say, let's rename all my details. Now, grab that and just hit apply, and it's going to do it for me. The window doesn't open. It's running in the background right now. And I lost my license. That's fun. Okay, now I got it back. Okay, and we're good to go. There we go. Updated my 39 views. So Spreadsheet Link can do way more than what I showed you today. There's a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. I suggest you check them out and see all the capabilities. And actually coming up in I think in a couple of weeks, maybe even next week, there's a webinar or 2 or 3 about Spreadsheet Link and some of the advanced controls and settings that can be done to help with the ease of, standardization of your Revit files and such. So anyway, so that is Spreadsheet Link. The last tool that I want to show you today, just a little bit on, is Project Processor. So all throughout these first 3 webinars, I showed you individual tools that can swap content, or purge something out, or rename a view, or rename a sheet. This tool can do it all at the same time into multiple projects, if you choose to. It takes a little bit more setup. It's not as, each tool is built to do that certain thing, right? This tool is built to do a lot of different things in the same process. So there's a couple of different options for this. I can add multiple project files to this list, and we can process multiple RVTs all at the same time. In this case, I'm just going to add what I have open at the moment. The second tab over here allows us to define the processes to be run. I'm going to uncheck all of these for the moment and start from the beginning. We have at the front and back end of this a scripts tab that allows you to add a process that runs outside of Revit. Maybe there's a batch routine you need to run to do a thing. Or, say maybe you've got a process that downloads a file from the FTP site and extracts it. Or vice versa, takes the file, zips it up, sends it to the FTP site, right? Kind of old school, but still needs to be done every now and again. Or puts it to your OneDrive or to your SharePoint. That's what the scripts tab is for. It's for doing some of that customized scripting that can't be done in Revit, that utilizes an EXE, a CMD, a BAT, or PowerShell script. After that, we get into the file and the internal file processing itself. So in my case, I'm processing what's open, so there's not a whole lot of file processing to do. Right? Everything's open. We can move on. But then we get into renaming, swapping, cleaning, purging, parameters, and links. With the rename options here, we can rename views similar to what we did in Spreadsheet Link, but without the super cool formula that was used. And same with templates, filters, and sheets. So I have the ability here to add a line item that gives me the ability to specify a bucket of views in a certain discipline or by type, or if there's a dependency or not, what phase, what template, what sheet number, if applicable, and then what property are we going to manipulate? Are we updating the name, or are we changing something else about it? So you get all the list of the view properties here. You can choose from those. So maybe drawn by is a field across the board that needs to be replaced with your designer's initials, or maybe there's a drawn by and a check by. And you have certain views. Maybe your architectural views need to be for this guy, and you got another row, and maybe your coordination views were drawn by someone else, and so on and so forth. You build them out how you need it built out. Where did I? Drawn by, there it is. Oh. And we'll do that one. Okay. And that will just apply to both projects that have the drawn by property in the view properties, which they all do. And you can do something similar for your view templates and view filters. If your view templates and filters are named improperly and aren't easy to understand, use this to help clean them up. And then, really it's views and sheets though. If your sheet numbers are off or your sheet names are out of whack, great way to go about doing it. And you can do it for multiple projects at the same time. We have a swap function similar to what Type Swapper did. I can now use that on my dim styles, text styles, line styles, patterns, fill patterns, and materials. And again, multiple projects can be attacked by this at the same time. So if you've discovered that someone went nuts and exploded a bunch of AutoCAD files in your projects and in multiple projects, we can now clean them up. I can jump into find the dimension styles that came with it, all the text styles that came along for the ride, line styles, line patterns, all that stuff, right? There's a whole bucket load of garbage that gets left behind when a CAD file gets exploded. This tool helps you clean that up if you've got that, or anything else for that matter, right? Maybe you just have a dimension style that isn't up to par, right? I got 3 linear dimension styles. I want those to all be that one. Boom, away we go. Text styles, same thing. No, I've already cleaned this one up, so I'm good. I got nothing to do there. Line styles, patterns. If you get AutoCAD stuff, it's all going to show up here. Thankfully, this one doesn't have an exploded CAD file, but I could do, in theory, grab the out-of-the-box lines and put all of those to my pen too. The Clean tab is a lot like Project Cleaner. What do I want to get rid of? This takes it a little bit further, though, and allows you to specify some information about it. For example, are they used or are they empty sheets? Or are they drawn by certain people or a certain number, right? So I have the option to be a little bit more explicit here than I could be with Project Cleaner. So in this case, I just want my empty sheets. Oh, I didn't mean to add that one. We'll get rid of that one. And on my views, I can pick what the view is and what property it is, and is it on a sheet or not on sheets, right? If it's a view that's not on sheets, I don't want it. Let's get rid of it. So, and then same thing down the line. Right? This is a batch purge, if you will, with some extra controls for your view templates, filters, links and imports if they're present. I used to have a duplicate Revit link here. I wonder if this one's still present. Oh, that's the file path. Nope, I don't want that. But effectively, it allows you to do everything all at once, right? Very much a cleanup tool. And the purge itself then is after you've cleaned it and you've made sure that nothing is where it needs to be or everything is where it needs to be. Then we can turn on the flip side and purge out all that stuff. So I just got done replacing it. The final step is your purge. What's getting purged? If you're getting close to project completion, you can go ahead and include materials and material assets. Or if you're using this for an archival process, it's going to take longer, obviously. Lots of materials and assets in a project to get rid of. And styles and patterns, if CAD's been exploded, that's a lot to get rid of. We also have the option for adding shared parameters to this and specifying what category. Oh, my shared parameter file is bad, apparently. So let's take a step back and put the right one in place then. How about that? So I have the option to add parameters or groups of parameters and what categories they're for or from. And I can add those to a project, like that one, for example. And okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Copyright, and I want that to be on, let's put it on my equipment. Where's my specialty equipment? There it is. We'll just start there. And now it's going to add it. It's going to take this parameter, add it to this category. Currently as an instance, I can change where it's being organized or where it's grouped. And do I need to give it, does it need to source another parameter for its base value or not? In this case, not. So I can now it's just going to add it. And you can go ahead and do it that way. And, similar to what Shared Parameter Manager allows for by batch loading some parameters into projects, we can do the same thing here. And then last but not least, we have the option to manage some of our links as far as their relative pathing goes, similar to what Import Link Manager does. So we've just combined a bunch of tools together into one that can now do most of the same tasks, but on multiple projects at the same time. So now I can turn around, I can, and hit start, and it's going to run through and start processing my projects. And because I've got two different kind of projects here, one's got a bunch of data in it, one's brand new. The brand new one's probably going to fail a number of times because it hasn't been filled out on everything. And it's going to run a little longer because I've got two projects in the list. But at this point, you would get a report, you'd run through it, you get your report, it'll tell you what worked and what didn't work, and if it didn't work, why didn't it work? Go back and make the change, get it fixed. So that kind of takes care of us for today. Next week, or the next webinar, part 5, we are going to be introducing a couple of new tools into the fray to discuss how to assist with additional standards management and enforcement, and how to apply that to multiple projects and families for your organization. And they are going to be newer tools. So I strongly suggest you all come along for the ride next week, or the next part, when part 5 is up. Let's see. How to obtain. So there's a couple of different ways to, well, there's really only one way to get your hands on this, and that's to go to our website. So if you don't already have it, go to ctcsoftware.com and go to our products page. Here you have access to all the products that we have out there. So today we talked about two different suites. Spreadsheet Link and View Creator are both in the BIM batch suite, or I'm sorry, BIM project suite. Project Processor is in the BIM batch suite. So you click here, you get some information about it, you get your chance to download a trial if you don't already have it. If you do have them, open up Revit and jump to the CTC Productivity tab, and you will see the tools that I talked about today. And then if you want to see the previous webinars, or you have questions on anything that, or I'm sorry, you have questions on any of the other tools and stuff like that, we've got videos for everything. So if you come to our YouTube channel, that's all here. See, here's my part 3. Here's part 2. Part 1's down here somewhere. So I highly recommend checking it out and looking for everything. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you to you all. That concludes the presentation for today. If you got to go, go. I appreciate everybody. Look forward to seeing you on the next one, where we do the final part to the series and put it all to rest. Look forward to seeing you next time.